Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Brett Nolan, and this is my presentation on my business idea, Link. Who am I? My name is Daniel Brett Nolan, like I just told you, and I am a junior management major from Double Springs, Alabama. My business idea is Link Interpreting Services, which is a business designed around the idea of contracting out interpreters, professional interpreters, to businesses that deal with a lot of internationals, interpretation services for international business. We would contract out interpreters to a business as needed through a network of our foreign language experts. So it wouldn't just be, we wouldn't just have Spanish language interpreters or sign language. We would have a wide variety that would be available to our client at all times. We would act as a full-time service for our customers, including any language that they may need. So, for example, if they used our service and they needed a Spanish-speaking interpreter one day and then a Mandarin interpreter the next day, that they would have options to have both of those whenever they needed them. We would put our headquarters in downtown Birmingham because it is a very populated and dense area, and I believe this would give us the best chance on startup and kind of to grow very quickly, and it would have a lot of international business in the area, obviously. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, more in depth about why it would be in downtown Birmingham. But for the most part, it's a market that I'm myself familiar with, and I believe it would be a good starting point for this business. We would do everything in the range of translating documents, translating speech, assisting anyone that may need it, such as travel, anything like that. We would handle any interpretation need. We would be there to help with. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal story with this product and why I think it would be particularly a good idea. First of all, I want to say the language barrier affects everyone to some degree. Everyone has had a time in their life where they've had to communicate with someone that doesn't exactly understand their language, or they don't understand their language, or it's always a problem. And if you're doing something as serious as a business deal or education related, you need to make sure that you're getting the right points across, and I think that's a big reason why this service will be successful. But it's also a big reason about what I've seen that would make me kind of be experienced in this service. So my experience with the language barrier comes from my job as a bank teller. Recently, I was a bank teller for several years, and I would deal with a lot of Spanish-speaking people. Now, I know a little bit of Spanish myself, but not enough to fully communicate with somebody, especially in a deal that was so important as making sure their money is right, making sure all of their funds are handled correctly. So when they would come in, we would often have to piece together parts of both languages or write out numbers. We'd be breaking out little pieces of paper or like drawing on our hands to get this task completed, whatever it may be, because it's very important. If they want to deposit $100 into their check and I can't understand into their account, and I can't understand what they're saying, then we're obviously going to have a huge issue. And I think that would be a lot of the stories of people you would hear if you just asked around. That would be a very similar story that a lot of people told about the language barrier. Is I had to complete this task and there was nobody there to help me. I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't talk to him. It was very hard. And that's the idea behind Link. But what makes Link unique from some of these other interpreting services? Link prioritizes on-hand interpretation services over the widely used online capabilities. So, although online capabilities may be a possibility for Link, our main initiative would be to get a professional interpreter to work with your business or you and handle those problems, whatever that may be, whatever that may entail. We want to have that personal connection of an interpreter and the business interacting, uh, along with the valuable assets that come with having multiple languages at your disposal from hiring Link. We would contract out interpreters based on need. So, and it kind of speaks for itself, but like I was saying earlier in my earlier example, let's say one day you need somebody that speaks Spanish, and the next day you need somebody that speaks, whatever, French. We have that service. We will take care of that for you. We kind of go by the business idea, if you've ever heard of nurses being contracted out where they may be needed. We would do that, but with interpreting services instead of nursing services. It would include all of our interpreters, not just one person or language, which I've already spoken about. Interpreters would create relationships within the business that they're contracted to and with the internationals that they interpret for. So, like I said, we really want to bring that bond between interpreter and business. So if you hire Link, it would be our hope that if you have, let's say, international business that comes in often from the same place, that international business would get used to seeing our interpreter and would, form a relationship and a friendship with them. So instead of coming and seeing, oh, that's our interpreter, it'd be, oh, that's Frank. That's my buddy Frank. He's our interpreter. And that's a lot of what we want to instill at Link, is that sense of professionalism yet personalism. Who would use Link? So this is a good question, and my initial reaction would be everybody can use Link. Link is a service, that anybody and everybody would be able to use, obviously. But primarily, I believe we would be targeting those international business needs. And the reason I say that is because the downtown Birmingham area, where I was initially thinking about putting this, Link, it would work well in any city, but just for the downtown Birmingham area purposes, think about the University of Alabama at Birmingham and UAB Hospital. Think about how many internationals come through there, whether it be education related or health related, or maybe a patient at the hospital or a speaker that comes to the university. Those two businesses alone are a perfect example of what Link seeks to help with. We want you to hire our service to be ready for any interpreting needs that you could have on hand. So when your international speaker comes in, you have Link there for you. You have the Link service right there that you can always go to, and you don't even have to worry about it. There's nothing else you have to worry about, nothing else you have to rely on. We have you covered. Travel organizations. Think of, this is kind of a long shot for something in the downtown Birmingham area, but I thought it had a lot of potential in the thought of it. Travel organizations from overseas to America, or vice versa, obviously, they're going to need a translator if they're not very versed in English, which English is becoming pretty commonplace now in a lot of places, but there are still those gaps like we talked about in the previous slide, where we're having to draw stuff out on our hands or use pieces of broken language from both languages to communicate. It would be a lot better to just have an interpreter travel around with you, if you ask me, and I think if you ask most people, they would agree with that. And Link would be there to assist with things like that as well. So now we want to talk a little bit about the market potential for Link. And it's a little bit tricky because the market potential is not exactly the true potential of Link. Because the first thing you would think of is, okay, well, how many non-English speakers are in the Birmingham downtown area? And that would be your clientele. That's what you would expect. But that's not really, as I said, that's not really uh, the basis that we're going off of with who we want to assist. More than anything, we want to have relationships with those international businesses, which there are a ton in downtown Birmingham. But I did look up some information on the non-English speakers in that area and in America. And according to the WashingtonExaminer.com, there are over 63 million foreign language speakers in America. And in the Birmingham area alone, there are over 10,000 non-English language speakers, according to datausa.io. And like I said, this is really good information because it gives us a little peek at the real need in America for interpretation and interpreting services. It's a huge chunk of our population doesn't speak English, or speaks broken English, or speaks it less than great, is I believe the way they describe it. That's huge. 63 million people in America can't go to the bank and easily complete a transaction and easily know that their money is being put where they want it to put. They have a lot of trouble with this, and the English speakers have a lot of trouble understanding it and trying to help them out with it. And I think that's what the bridge that Link wants to put up over the gap is that right there. We want to be able to help the people that truly need it, and we want to do that through these businesses. So if this bank that everybody goes to has a Link representative there, they don't have a problem. It goes smoothly, everything goes by easily, and it's just a huge help to both sides. And I think it's a very solid idea, and I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to help people that can't speak the language like that. Link hopes to capitalize on this market and solve the problems caused by language barriers, like I just spoke about. I mean, it's really all about, we want to make sure that there are no hiccups in these meetings or in everyday life with the language barrier. Our marketing would be centralized around, the business that hired Link would pay a monthly or yearly sum to Link for a subscription to our interpreting resources. Smaller occasions would pay daily or hourly. So this is kind of to reinforce the fact that Link is not just for the UABs and the AT&T headquarters out there. It's for any business that needs it or believes that it will come in handy, just for that day. So if UAB, the university, had an international speaker that wanted to come in that couldn't speak any English, they could hire us for a day. They could hire our services for a day and be completely fine with that. We would obviously rather have them on our monthly or yearly services so they never have to worry about it, but we're there to help however we can help. Downtown Birmingham would be a good example of a starting location, though any major city would work. Just like I talked about earlier, this is a little bit more of what I was referring to in the earlier slide. Downtown Birmingham is so densely populated, that you can't help but run into some of these non-English speakers. So if you think that everyone at UAB Hospital is speaking English all the time, all of their patients are English speakers, you're probably wrong. I can almost guarantee that. They have got to have some way to communicate those important things. Think of how important that is. If a only Spanish-speaking American person goes into UAB Hospital needing, immediate aid, and no one is there that knows Spanish to be able to interpret what they're saying, what has happened to this person. You know, it could be extremely serious, or it could be, you know, something completely different, whatever. That is a necessity to have. That's why we say we would get involved with UAB and UAB Hospital, AT&T headquarters, Alabama Power headquarters, you know, etc. All those. And UAB and UAB Hospital, I've been talking a lot about because I feel like they are extremely good examples of exactly the type of people that would require a service like Link. So that's why I've been talking a lot about them. We would set up meetings with these companies and offer them our services. That's just kind of what we would do. We would bring to a meeting, just kind of show them what we bring to the table, tell them, you know, basically hire Link and we'll take all of the interpreting services off your hands. You won't have to worry about it again. You know, you just renew your contract monthly, yearly, whatever you want to do. And we take all of that burden off of your hands. You no longer have to worry about that, and people get helped. You know, that's a huge plus for the community. So some of our potential competitors, there are a lot out there. Interpreting services are a dime a dozen in the online world. For instance, online services such as Google Translate provides a free alternative to our service, but it is very flawed. A lot of the times I've found it doesn't even translate it for you. It translates it into something completely different, or, you know, doesn't have the translation for it. And that is why you would want a professional in the language, or a professional interpreter to come, you know, interpret for you. You don't want to be looking it up on your phone while this guy's having a heart attack and you can't figure out what's wrong with him. You want to have somebody that's qualified and that's professional right there on hand to handle that with you and for you. Freelance interpreters. Yeah, I mean, what's to stop UAB from hiring a Spanish-speaking interpreter? You know, nothing. But our hope is that we could get the freelance interpreters to work for us through the business. So let's say UAB Hospital. Let's just go with that. UAB Hospital already has their Spanish interpreter, and they don't, you know, whatever. We would absolutely be willing to put that woman, let's say it's a woman, on our payroll, that interpreter, on our payroll, and still offer the full services to UAB Hospital. So we take possession of the employee. That interpreter does not, she doesn't leave the campus, she doesn't do anything like that. They still retain that Spanish interpreter, but they also have access to our full range of interpreting services, whether, you know, whatever language that may be that they need at the time. I think that's really where freelance interpreters would be below Link service, is because Link is built to find work for these freelance interpreters. I believe a lot of the current freelance interpreters would want to join something like that. Like I said, it's built to find work for them. And like I said, if you work at UAB and you like it at UAB, of course we're going to leave you at UAB. We're not going to, you know, not going to make you go somewhere else just because you work for us. Corporate employed interpreters, kind of what I was just talking about. They kind of, I think freelance and corporate employed go really hand in hand. Yeah, I mean, we are all about you being able to be with that business because you're about what we're about. When people come to UAB and they speak Spanish and you're the Spanish interpreter at UAB, they know who you are. They know your name if they've been there enough. And that's exactly what we want from our business and our interpreters integrated into your business. So what are some of the benefits of Link over those other substitutes? The first thing I would say is that on-demand access to a professional interpreter of the language of their choosing is a big one. you don't have, you're not looking at your phone. You should be video conferencing with some professional interpreter online. You have a real person, a real coworker right there with you at all times, on hand. When you hire Link as a service, you get all of our interpreters and resources. Yeah, you're not just hiring an interpreting service that brings in an interpreter to help you with whatever. You're hiring a interpreting service with a full range of professional interpreters. And I think that's a big part of our business. You don't have to just focus on Spanish interpreting or whatever it may be. You can have any language you need at the time. That's our service. Personal relationship building through a professional interpreter instead of using an impersonal technological medium. So this is a little bit what I just talked about, but I'd really like to hammer it home. When you have a business guest come from overseas and they don't know any English or they know very little, you want to make sure that you have a professional interpreter that they know that can be there every time they show up. I believe that shows a different level of professionalism from that business. And I believe it puts off a good look. They don't come and, like I talked about earlier in an earlier slide, they don't come and, this is their interpreter. They come and say, this is Frank. Like I said earlier, this is our buddy Frank that we know because we see him all the time. And I believe that would be a big deal going forward. Why will this be the greatest product on earth? Simple and easy. It brings people together. And I really liked this picture. I saw this picture and I really wanted to put it into my presentation because it represented exactly what I believe Link is all about. This is a nurse talking to a man. It kind of clipped out the man. I'm sorry, my face is kind of over him. But this is a nurse having an obviously extremely important conversation with a man in the hospital. And the man is deaf. There's no way that you can communicate what you need to communicate to this man without a professional interpreter being there. And this lady on the left is exactly what we at Link want to be. We want to be that bridge over the gap. We want to be those people there that make sure everything gets done right and everything gets translated professionally and accurately. We want to really be integrated into your business and to be able to help in every way we can. Thank you guys so much for listening to my business idea. And I have some of my references here that I got some of my data from. And I really appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you have a great day.